This is episode number 6 of the Jason Croft Show and part 2 of our interview with Ken Koo.
This is not business as usual. Host Jason Croft is a video marketing strategist driven to grow your business. He grabs top CEOs, startup founders, even sales and marketing rock stars, throws them in a moving vehicle, and forces them to give you their most valuable tactics and business insights. So sit back, buckle up, and hang on for the Jason Croft Show.
If you haven't checked out part 1 yet of our interview with Ken, do that right now. Otherwise, let's get back to the business mobile with Ken Koo and Bridge Alliance.
Why do software companies want to get on the Forrester or Gartner reports? Because they've been vetted by a third party. There's efficacy there around the analysis by the knowledge management company, and there's no vested interest on the third party's part that one company does better than the other, right? So right now there could be a lot of vested interest. So if a company right now wants to get engaged with a small startup and they call, let's say, a private equity company or an accelerator, they are probably going to represent their portfolio first, right? Sure. So does that really have the enterprise's challenges and problems at heart first, or right? So if their startup is not a good solution or not a good fit, are they going to provide other services? They're just gonna, at that point in time, say we can't help you, right?
Right. Exactly.
Right. Like they're not going to go take the extra mile and do additional work to put you in connected with a startup that they do not hold a position in.
Right.
Why would they?
Right.
They have to look out for their portfolio. They probably have a fiduciary responsibility to only represent their portfolio, I would say, right? They could try to be good community stewards, but at some point in time, you got to draw the line. Like, I can't do this work. I can't do this additional work because it doesn't connect with my business.
So where does Bridge Alliance stand right now in its existence? Like, just what does it look like right now?
Sure, great question. So the Bridge Alliance is a startup itself, right? So it started in November of last year, and so it's only 4 or 5 months old, and right now
a wee baby.
Yeah, it's brand new, and we're still learning in the learning stage of trying to figure out, is there going to be market demand for this? Will businesses truly want it, right? So we have taken the time over the last 4 months to actually analyze and take a look at 300 to 400 startups that I have seen and that my team has seen over the last 3 years, and we've called them down now to about 150 viable B2B startups that actually go in the database.
Okay.
Our series of events next week will actually invite the businesses to introduce them to this concept, and then hopefully shortly thereafter they will engage in the Bridge Alliance to help them essentially with their business challenges and connect them with solutions, whether they are academic solutions or they're startup solutions. And once that connection is made and that we see value flowing through, that all constituencies sees a win here in terms of the programming, then we'll figure out what is next in terms of whether it's growth or funding or expansion. But at the end of the day, it's a multi-channel marketplace, right? So you could see it as, it's a marketplace for startups for them to get listed. It's a place where businesses can get engaged to take a look inside the community to see what we have to offer. Right. So it's basically a multi-channel marketplace. So with that said, all the constituents need to come to the table and find value in the function. And then once they find value in the function, then let's see where it goes.
And what are you hoping to, what's your marker for that and finding value?
Yeah, so I think if we can get a handful of businesses, maybe 4 or 5 businesses before the end of the year to engage and actually participate in the process, whether or not they engage in an actual startup to solve one of their problems, but just get through the stages of the methodology we've laid out, which is the first is exposure. So through our events, we also have a publication coming out in May where we're releasing this trend report. Myself and a couple of analysts are working through right now all the different trends that our startups actually fit into. So not necessarily industries, but things like IoT, right? Healthcare. They could be very broad. Analytics, mobile apps. So right now we're just looking for trends and then exposing that to, as in a consumable fashion in a report to executives, as that's how they're used to consuming knowledge. Right?
Sure, absolutely. That's what they see is
that's
that
right.
legitimate businesses or legitimate things to go out and procure and get engaged. Okay.
Yeah. So then, really, the immediate step after that is experiential. So once they find interest that there are certain areas within the report that could help their business, once they reach out and engage, we'll put together essentially a private pitch day for them, right?
Okay.
We are bringing the startups and academic research to you, right? Like, we're not asking you to come 60 miles south or 40 miles south or whatever it is to sit in this gigantic auditorium with a whole bunch of other people. We're catering to your business. We're bringing it to your team. We're coming to you with your own private pitch day. And then after that, if you decide however you want to execute with one of these startups, maybe for the beginning, you just want to be a customer. For some of them, they may want to make an investment, right? So perhaps they could have some protection, right? If they make an investment, they could protect whatever they're working on. Yeah, there's a little bit of ownership at that point. So that's really where the value is being generated. Once that connection gets made, and we can get maybe a handful of those by the end of the year, I would call that a win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's the revenue model around Bridge Alliance? Like, what does that
Great
play
question.
into?
Yeah, so the revenue model for Bridge Alliance is that it is a service. At this point, I call it open innovation as a service, and essentially the enterprise will be charged a fee for pulling together all this effort around their private pitch day, walking them and essentially curating for them the startup or the academic innovations.
Gotcha.
To make it feasible for them, right? So whether it's culturally they can't do it internally, or skill-wise they couldn't do it internally, there could be a whole bunch of reasons why they would not do it themselves. They simply don't have the talent or the resources to bring in somebody that understands that community to go do it. So, let me provide it to you as a service.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's great. So for both sides right now, so for our startups who are watching and listening, they feel like they qualify.
Yep.
What do they need to have in place? Not just we'll get them connected to you and all of that process.
Right.
But what should they be thinking of in terms of their checklist to say, like, oh, I could qualify for that?
Right. So if their business is ready for an enterprise customer with both their product or their service, so it's got to get to a point where it is scaled and ready for an enterprise business, right? Okay. So it's beyond beta, right? It's beyond MVP. It's to a point where it's ready. You're ready for 1,000 users, 10,000 users, right? And then how do you service that, right? I'm sure that the enterprise will ask, what is your service level agreement if something goes wrong with either your product or your service? So to kind of have that full 360 vetted out, beyond just a lot of the startups tend to focus on early traction and just learning and product development,
and again more almost investor mindset, those markers that investors often look for. Like, they're thinking in those terms maybe a little more than actual, like, a giant customer coming on board, which this would be more in line with.
This would be more in line with that. So if you're ready for that, and I think a lot of startups are very good at taking a look at themselves if they're truly ready for it.
Sure.
If you're ready for that, and then you're ready from a procurement process perspective, just go apply. So go to bridgealliance.co and sign up for a listing, and then we'll take a look at your startup to see and reach out to you and have a quick conversation on if you feel like you're ready and you've qualified through our process, and then you'll be listed. Okay. So it's as simple as that, and then beyond that, it's really up to the enterprise to see if that they actually have a business challenge that can be solved by your solution.
Gotcha. And so, is there a level of engagement though with you, with the Bridge, from a startup's perspective, if they know they're not quite there yet, they're 2 steps away, or that's plans down the road, should they still engage with you, with Bridge Alliance, and sort of getting ready and we want to be on this track? Can you help us do that?
No, absolutely, because I think there's already a lot of facilities and a lot of tools out there already within our startup community that helps with that entrepreneurial growth. Whether they're mentors at the deck or one of our fantastic co-working spaces, you can get a lot of learnings there. But we can also give you a lot of learnings as well in terms of, hey, really the next step for you to obtain an enterprise customer, you need to have kind of these things in line and be ready and be prepared for them.
Yeah.
The last thing we want is this moment of failure where we've made the introduction, there's interest on both sides, and then you're not able to execute for some reason, right?
Makes you look bad, makes the startup look bad.
We just wasted a lot of people's time and energy, and it's not good for you either to not be able to actually complete the transaction.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, there are things we can do, and then from a growth pattern perspective, some of the startups, for example, that's in our listing right now are doing very well. They're businesses that have obtained some capital, but a lot of them are just ready to scale and have a lot of traction. So a company like Touch Controls, who recently just received like $8 million of funding, but have been in business for several years. So you don't necessarily have to be a startup that was just propped up recently. But Greg Fasulo and his team over there have been working for several years, and I've known Greg and been watching that startup, for example, and they've received quite a bit of funding. Or somebody like Daniel Black, right? Somebody like Daniel who's been working in the community for the last 2 years or so, and his business has already been serving a lot of enterprise clients.
Absolutely.
He's one of those companies. So if there are aspirational startups to look at, I would look at those and be like, hey, am I like those, or can I grow to be like those guys? So I can get involved, and the Bridge Alliance can help us grow.
Perfect. And then on the opposite side,
from
the enterprise perspective, somebody listening from them, how can they get engaged with you at this point?
Yeah, I think I think they just need to reach out, right? So right now we're very accessible, and we're very open to working with all kinds of different businesses. As I've talked to businesses that are in logistics industry, in the healthcare industry, in the semiconductor industry, just to kind of get their gauge on the thoughts around this. And many of them agree that this is something that they will utilize if the economics work, if it's priced right. And that's what happens with the mobile studio.
That's right.
And really just be prepared to have a conversation around what you may be currently working on today that could be a business challenge that you think that this community can help you solve, or help accelerate some sort of internal initiative.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
That you currently have, and it's additive to what you're doing. If you see something that you're already working on, whether it's an IoT device, or you're trying to reduce the power consumption on something, or all the way to healthcare, you're looking for a better way to manage staff time, or there's just so many different interesting solutions out there in the startup community.
Oh yeah. Well, it's really interesting because it's a great approach that I think is finally becoming a little more commonplace to not, to go beyond, okay, we need to manage staff hours, right? And it's so what apps are out there? What's existing already? That's the normal thought process. And instead going, in a perfect world, we would have this, and this. How do we go? I think it's becoming more commonplace. So like, oh, we can just go create this.
Right.
And not be, a 4-year process and a big giant. They can be something that's really fast, but still be custom, still be very innovative.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, I see that this is a very new way of getting work done and solving business problems. I believe maybe 20 years ago, small businesses were not really viable. It was really difficult to start a small business. It was really difficult to scale that business, and a lot of big companies just dismissed them, right? Where we are today with venture capital, the amount of economic boost as well as the relevancy of those startups, you now have to pay attention, right? It becomes viable and has, because of venture capital, has dramatically reduced the risk of engaging with a small business in general.
Oh, yeah.
So with that said, then this becomes now a viable marketplace. So all those excuses in the past of they're too small, if we hire them, they could fail and then we're stuck with nothing. You can manage the risk now associated with working with a startup
you ever could
than before.
Yeah.
And the way that businesses startups are now scaling, and the methodologies that we're teaching, that to have scale in mind, really addresses the viability of being able to service bigger customers.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate. Right?
Absolutely.
So, I think a lot of those old reasons of why to not engage in a small business are going away very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. That's fantastic. Well, I love what you're doing. So you've got events coming up already, and you're about to really start ramping up to test this whole thing out.
Yeah,
right?
so next week we're going to market on April 7th and the 8th, right before Dallas Startup Week. And we're hosting a series of events, one in Allen on April 7th and one with the city of Addison on April 8th. And we will be presenting and having luncheon and providing the businesses of each one of the cities an opportunity to engage with the startup community. We're going to bring it to them.
Nice.
Invited their executives, and we will also have academic research and tech transfer folks in the room to share with some of the innovative things that they're working on with some of the fantastic Tier 1 schools that we have in town around some of the great innovations that they're working on that could benefit both the startups and enterprise, and to help them accelerate some of the initiatives that they're working on or perhaps solve a business challenge.
Well, I love it. Well, give us the website again.
Yeah, so it's bridgealliance.co.
Okay.
And just drop us a quick note, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week at the events, or we can just meet up at Dallas Startup Week. So we're ready.
Fantastic. Ken, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely. I love what Ken is doing to solve this issue. You know, one of the issues we touched on a little bit in these two episodes is the issue of trust. The large corporations, you know, they want to trust that the startup is going to deliver on what they say they will, and you know, the startup has to trust that the large corporation is going to honor the agreement and not steal their IP or overpower them in any way and push them around. It's a really tough road to navigate, but something like Bridge Alliance could really be the answer that starts building that trust. I can't wait to see how it evolves under Ken's leadership. If you will, hit the subscribe button here in YouTube and make sure to get more of these bad boys as they come out. For my podcast listeners and viewers, please jump over to iTunes, subscribe there, and leave us a review. In addition to creating great shows like this one, I help my clients develop their content marketing ecosystem in order to grow their business. If you're interested in learning how I can help you, visit thejasoncroft.com and let's schedule a time to talk. And hey, if you're interested in doing what I do and learning how to interview people like a pro, sign up for my 4-week email course. It's completely free and will give you some great insights into interviewing people on video. Whether you have your own TV show, you want to start a podcast, or simply interview someone for your blog, just go to thejasoncroft.com/interview and get signed up. Next up on the show is Jillian Jordan. She has started the Great Seed Bomb, an incredibly important initiative to regrow native plant life to support the ecosystem that depends on them. She's turning that single idea into a powerful movement. She dives into the details of how, so you can start a thriving campaign of your own. That's in episode number 7. Jump over now, check it out.
Thanks for listening to The Jason Croft Show. Head over to thejasoncroft.com for all the show notes, links, and special offers mentioned in the show. Also, if you've not already rated our podcast in iTunes, we'd love your support. Please leave a review and the star rating that you think we've earned. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got more incredible guests coming your way. We'll see you next time for business, breakthroughs, and being better on The Jason Croft Show.